we don't know what Queen Elizabeth was like when the doors closed, when she was alone in a room. We don't know that. That's where imagination kicks in. That's where the poetic research has to kick in. That's where the actor, the writer, the director have to sort of take these extra steps. That's the poetic. And sometimes there's not much information about the character also. You have to play characters we don't have information about. That's when you have to then have more poetic research than literal research. Also, once you're done with the research, you start working on the role, you do your homework, and then it's time to play the part. When the camera rolls or when you enter the stage, you need to literally absorb this research into your body so much that it seems like it's instinct. It should seem like it's entered your body. Literally, it should enter your bones. And when you perform, the audience, you should make the audience believe that it's naturally coming out of you. And that's really tough. That requires a lot of hard work. So bottom line, research helps with facts, but then the artist also has to go beyond the substance using their imagination. I'll move on to the second part of the talk, which is artist as a cultural reject. Now, why do I use the word reject? See, while the world needs art and artists, we know that in different societies at different points of time, there has been this constant love-hate relationship between the society and the artists. I think that a lot of it stems from the point that artists question society. They lay bare its contradictions, its hypocrisies. They show the cracks that exist in the society. It's not easy for many people to accept their own contradictions, see their own hypocrisies. It's not easy. So when I use the word reject, I mean that artists are not always fully accepted by people, mainly because they're questioning beings. Now you will notice, interestingly, that a lot of this has crept into the language that we use, the everyday language that we use. Like the profession of an artist, of an actor, a singer, or a dancer has been used and is used as a negative connotation, as a profanity. उसको गाली की तरह use कर लेते हैं हम. कई बार हम लोग बोलते हैं यार वो कितना नौटंकी कर रहा है. Nautanki is a theater form. There's a history to it. But we just reduce it to this one word and give it a negative connotation. Kitna drama kar raha hai. I mean, these are also relatively harmless. But then we move on to a proverb, a very famous proverb, which some of you may also know. It's called "Teen cheezon se bach ke rehna, rand, bhand aur sand." Now, the rand is the prostitute. Beware of the prostitute. The sand is the bull. Beware of the bull, because he'll hit you with his horns and will rip you apart. And the rand will, of course, question your morality. She will show a mirror to you. So beware of her. This is my interpretation. And beware of the bhand. The bhand is the performer, the performing artist, the actor. And I feel that society is scared of the bhand because the bhand also shows the mirror to society, reveals its hypocrisies. So how these things sort of creep into our language and they become galis, because rand and bhand are also professions. So they've been reduced to galis. So the rejection is also at the level of language. Also, if we sort of look at the gender dimension of this, there's this, a lot of films, over many decades have used this gali when they want to talk about a loose woman. Of course, they didn't see her as a free-thinking, independent woman, but when they spoke of a loose woman, the words would be tawaif, vaishya, or nachne gaane wali. These were, again, professions, but they were used in a very negative sort of way. History has, in general, marginalized the voices of women, but within that, female entertainers, they have received a really bad rap. I'm going to read out a little bit from an article in Scroll about the history of the tawaifs. The tawaifs, who were professional singers and dancers, were dubbed as Nach girls, Nachne wali, during the British rule. And their profession was conflated with prostitution in the late 19th century. Christian missionaries and Indian reformers launched the anti-Nach movement in the late 19th century, and public opinion started to weigh heavily against the courtesans and dancers. That's from school. Now, these women, these nachne walis, these kawaiers were exceptional and phenomenal writers, poets, singers, and dancers. But barely does history count them. Barely do any of their names come up in the field of literature or poetry. And those few women whose names have come up, they've really had to fight their way through. Someone like a Gohar Jan or an M.S. Subbalakshmi, they really had to fight their way through. One such story of rejection of the artist dates back to the 14th century. And I'd like to share this story because it's also closer to my heart. It's about the origin story of how Bhavai is a folk theatre form of Gujarat, and all folk theatre forms across India and across the world have these nice origin stories. मतलब आप बंगाल में चले जाओ, वहाँ का जात्रा देख लो, साउथ में चले जाओ, कश्मीर में चले जाओ, all their folk theatre forms have an origin myth. I mean, myth बोलते हैं, they say that ये folk art form यहाँ से शुरू हुआ था. So there's a story related to how these folk art forms originated. Bhavai has a very similar story. Now, most Bhavai performers belong to a caste called the Targala Brahmins. It's a subcaste of the Brahmins. The Targalas or the Tragalas are traditional Bhavai performers who believe that their ancestor Asayat Thakar is the creator of this dramatic form. They believe Asayat Thakar created Bhavai. Now, Asayat Thakar is known to have written plays attacking social injustice and the caste system. Now, the origin story goes this way, that Asayat Thakar, during Asayat Thakar's time, there was a king who had this army commander, and the army commander came to the village and he picked up this girl and kidnapped her. Her name was Ganga. Now, Ganga belonged to a caste lower than the Brahmin caste. She was not of the Brahmin caste, and she gets kidnapped. But Ganga's father then requests Asayat Thakar he pleads with him to go and rescue Ganga. So what Asayat Thakar, who is a Brahmin, goes to the commander and he performs. He sings and he recites, and he does such a good job that the commander is so happy with him. He says, "Tujhe jo chahiye mang, ask whatever you want to." And he says, "Please give Ganga back to me." He says, "No, why should I give Ganga back to you?" He says, "She's my daughter, so please give her back to me." Of course, he was lying. Ganga was not his daughter. The commander has his own doubts, and he wants to test whether Ganga is actually his daughter. So what he does is he keeps a plate of food in front of Asayat Thakar, and he tells him to share the food from the same plate with Ganga. Now, in those days, the caste system to abhi bhi bahut tagda hai, but in those days, it was even stronger. Like if a Brahmin were to share food with a lower caste person, then he would be ostracized from his community. He would be removed from his community. But still, Asayat, he's an artist. He's kind of used to breaking boundaries. So what he does is he eats with Ganga from the same plate. Ganga is released, and Asayat Thakar brings Ganga back home. But he bears the brunt of the whole event. He is kicked out of his community by the Brahmins, and he then is left with no home. He's kicked out of the village, and then he travels to different villages and different parts where he performs his story. There is a similar story of Asayat Thakar. There are two origin stories. The other one is about that there's a Muslim emperor who is so impressed with Asayat Thakar that he rewards him with a lot of money, and Asayat accepts it. And for accepting money from a Muslim, he is ostracized from his village and community, and then he sort of travels and starts performing. He performs plays which question the caste system and different kinds of oppressive systems. So this is a very old story of an artist's rejection, but I mean, it's just an interesting story which I thought I wanted to share. I mean, maybe these things, I don't know in what ways they happen, but there is the remnants of these still linger, that, associating actors with something negative, it still lingers in our minds in some way or the other. We may be highly educated, we may be living in the biggest cities of the world, but we still think along those lines. I'll give you a very simple example. This is about when I moved to Bombay, and this is an experience that many of my actor and actress friends have shared. When you move to Bombay, what's the first thing you do? You look for a house. And that's a crazy process. So when you look for a house in Bombay, you meet brokers, you meet landlords, and there are all sorts of questions that get asked, and you learn and understand that who are the kind of people who are likely to get a rented accommodation, and who are the people who are going to find it more difficult. And of course, actors and actresses, wrong category. I remember being told by a broker that हम actor actresses को घर नहीं देते हैं, क्योंकि वो general, and they have a general impression that actors and actresses sort of drink, they dope, they do drugs, वेले बैठे रहते हैं, कुछ काम नहीं करते हैं. One broker also told me that that some landlords don't want to give houses to actors and actresses because they hang themselves by the fan and they kill themselves, they commit suicide. So, well, there are lots of these kind of explanations. So, and of course, when it comes to actresses, there's also the notion that they may be soliciting, that they may also be getting in men and engaging in sex work of some sort. These are experiences, these are real life experiences that I've had or some of my friends have had. So there is, इस तरह का एक अभी भी remnant रह गया है, rejection वाला. Moving on to the third part of the talk, the artist as a healer. See, now performance artists literally, and I'm talking about good performances, they literally open their heart out to the audiences. They use their body, voice and emotion to reach an audience. You must have heard the word patra. अभिनेता एक पात्र निभा रहा है, एक role play कर रहा है. Role, patra is a character or a role. But interestingly, patra is also a vessel. It's an open vessel. It's like a gateway. It's like a portal. It's something that's open. And it's literally like the actor is a vessel who sort of pours out this emotion or creative spirit onto the audience. Now, when a work of art is performed, it could be a play or a piece of music or dance, there is literally something in the air that passes between the artist and the audience. And I'm talking about live performances. This also happens in films. Actors also do that for you on the screen. That's amazing. It's almost like they enter into an intimate relationship where they connect with each other. So now both the artist and the audience, they move beyond their personal worlds because the story is being told. Now, it's a performer's job to transport an audience into another world, into another dimension of experience. And this is where I'd like to compare an artist to, a performing artist to a shaman. Shaman, I'm going to spell it out. Some of you may not be familiar with the word. It's S-H-A-M-A-N, shaman. Now, shaman is ये बहुत ही पुराना एक word है. A shaman is like a doctor or a healer. And he's a practitioner of a religious practice called shamanism. Now, shamanism is something that dates back tens of thousands of years ago, before any known religion. It predates any known religion. Now, who is a shaman? A shaman is some kind of a healer or a doctor who, so if there's someone who's ill and comes to a shaman, how does he heal them? What he does is, and let's not get into the truth or falsity of it. Let's think of it as a metaphor. The shaman, to heal that person, is said to journey into the world of the spirit. He or she, a shaman could also be a woman. They journey into the world of the spirit. They have a chat with the spirit and seek some guidance from the spirit, and they come back to the physical world to heal the person. So that's what a shaman does. Now, in shaman, the concept of shaman and shamanism is a big topic in anthropology and sociology, even religious studies. And there are lots of discussions in these disciplines where they draw parallels between shamans and storytellers, or shamans and actors. And I find this parallel very interesting because the actor also does something very, very similar. The actor literally moves away from the current world and takes the audience to another world, another dimension of experience, and then brings them back. So it's like a storyteller or an actor takes you to another world and brings you back. They're like a bridge between the two worlds. So the actor enables the spectator to escape or move away from their reality for the duration of the play or the film, and transports them out of their daily existence into this fantasy scenario for a brief period. So just like the shaman journeys outwards, the actor also sort of takes the audience and journeys outwards. The actor has to use their imagination and also journey inwards. So the actor has to journey outwards, but also inwards, because he or she has to sort of then get in contact with their own emotions, relate their life incidents to the character they are playing. So that's another kind of journey. Now also, what is interesting is the preparation that an actor does just before entering the stage, or just before the director calls action. There's a preparation that goes on for an actor. And that is literally the transition period, you know. Before one enters the stage, actors are doing their physical warm-ups, their vocal warm-ups, or you'll find an actor sitting in a corner, just doing his or her lines, or just sitting quietly. Before the director, in film, before the director calls for action, the actor has to sort of prepare himself to transition from one world into another. So there is that transition that an actor also does. It's literally like they have to shut off from an everyday physical reality and open themselves to another kind of reality. Now, why am I calling them a healer? Healing begins with a sense of empathy, and I think all acting teachers tell us this, that acting is literally empathy, where you empathize with the character you play. You imagine someone's inner life, and you wonder what that person feels like, what they go through on a daily basis. It's also an experience that the audience has when they're in a movie theater or when they're watching a play. They're sharing an experience about, and they're caring for someone else's life. You know, there's someone else's life that's being played out there, but they're caring for it. And that's incredible. It's an incredible thing for people to participate in as a society, as a community. And probably that's why theater and film has been such an important part of human culture. When the audience sees a story, many of them even see their own life reflected in front of them. And I'd like to give you, again, a personal example. When we were performing one of our shows of the Vagina Monologues, one of the monologues is about a young girl who gets abused by her uncle. It's a very serious and a very painful monologue, and it was being performed by my co-actress, incredible actress, Dilnaz Irani. She was performing this, and it was somewhere in the middle of the show, actually. Dilnaz finished performing, and we were still continuing, but then we heard someone in the audience call out that stop, please stop the show, stop the show. This never happens in theater. I mean, when you start a play, you reach the end. But an audience member screaming and asking us to stop the show was a bit scary. We realized that someone in the audience had fainted. Of course, she was taken care of by the organizers. She was kept in the green room. She was all right soon. We continued with our show. We finished the show. And then we went to meet her in the green room. And she told us that the story that she saw being narrated in front of her was exactly her story. And when she was a kid, that happened to her sister, actually, And she hadn't revisited that in a long time. It's almost like she had erased it for herself. She didn't want to revisit it. But when she saw the same story being told in front of her, she couldn't take it. She fainted. We were in touch with her even later. We met her sister also later, and it was quite an event for her. See, that's what I feel. That's what artists do very often. And again, when I say artists, I also mean writers and filmmakers and all these. They open up wounds.
Hello.
There are a lot of wounds that are opened up, and I think in the process, then they
one second.
heal it. And yeah, so that's it. That's all I have to say. I would like to take questions or comments, or if you have to share something. Thank you.
It was wonderful listening to you, Swati. Actually, okay. Already we have a question from Rashmi. So she has written it there, that is researching a character same as inventing a character. So
sorry, I didn't get that.
Yes, when you were discussing research.
Your voice is cracking. I'm not able to follow you.
Am I audible now?
Oh, okay. I can also see the question on my screen. Yes. Is researching a character same as inventing a character? Well, to invent, you need to do some solid research. It's a bit of both. I mean, research helps you invent, but also I think you need to, and if I speak as an actor, you need to stay within the parameters that have been given by the writer or the director. You can't go about inventing too much also, you have to stay truthful to the character. The research helps you also realize how much you can invent and how much you can't. There are like for example, if I were to play a widow from Banaras in the 1800s, and I want to add something of my own, but I better know what are the restrictions that she has. There is a certain limit to my inventing also, but research helps. It guides in the invention. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
While you are researching for a character to become a character, do you invent yourself? What is your take on it?
You mean as me, as Swati?
As a person, yes.
Do I invent myself? As in
any new part of yourself, that is. I'm sorry.
No, fair enough. I just wanted to make sure I got your question right. You mean, does it affect me as a person? It does. It does. Sometimes if the part is very well written, it can really affect you as a person. It can. I think I would like to give the example of the play I did, The Taming of the Shrew. It was a gender reversed version. It was so much fun, and it was also very difficult for me. It was a beautiful experience for me. First of all, I play a man in Taming of the Shrew, and I play a fairly abusive man. So first of all, it was very difficult for me to be an abusive man and understand why he's doing what he's doing. So I did my homework, did my research. My director was very helpful, all of that. But every day I had to literally battle with this feeling of why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And it really affects you as a person. I had to also think from the point of view of a man in those times, what are the kind of social and economic pressures that he would have had. So wo sab ke chakkar mein, yeah, I think you do start, it affects a part of you. Definitely it does. Yeah, it could even change a part of you.
Okay, we have another question written here in the chat box. Chitra has typed, how did Hindi medium happen for you?
Okay, I should thank the Vagina Monologues for it. I was performing a show of the Vagina Monologues, and the director and the associate director happened to see that show. So in the Vagina Monologues, I play different parts, and in all those different parts, I use different accents. So I think because of my multicultural background, I'm pretty good with accents. So that kind of worked in my favor, I think, and the director saw me on stage. So then I got an audition call. Of course, I auditioned also for it. But I think the fact that he saw me on stage performing different parts kind of gave me an edge over the other actors, I feel. Yeah, and that's how it happened. It was a chance that the director saw me on stage, but then there was a regular audition process which all actors have to go through. I auditioned and I got the part.
Okay, actually, since you mentioned again Vagina Monologues, Srotashwini had a question for you on, yeah.
Actually, I have two questions which are related to the first and second part of your talk. I was thinking of asking them as, a little bit of selfish soul, because we are moderating. We have many questions for you. They're being written in the chat box. We'll come back to that. But since my questions relate to your talk, I was thinking of talking about that. So you were talking about, uncomfortable spaces in an artist's head. You're talking about reducing the connotations of certain words associated with the domain of performing arts. So I will narrow my question. How do you see pretension? Is it a negative word for you? Or, is pretension another name for doing justice to a particular role for the sake of your art? Is it a part of your performance?
The word pretension, even when I speak to my co-actors or directors, somehow even in the rehearsal process, the word pretension never comes up. It's interesting that you asked. I actually haven't thought of it. In a way, I think maybe the reason it doesn't come up is probably because it has a connotation that the actors don't want to get into. Yes, we are pretending to be someone else. That's true. We are pretending. But I think the word pretension and pretending I've never heard this word in rehearsals or on a set. No, it's never heard. The words you hear are be truthful to your character. You're playing someone else. Bring in a sense of honesty. Honesty, truthful are words you'll keep hearing in rehearsals and on film sets. Pretension, I've never heard it actually, to be very frank. So which I think says something that actors don't see themselves as pretending, because pretension में एक झूठ है. There's a sense of of a lie, and of course the fact is that we are pretending to be someone else, but that word never occurs to us. For us, we need to make sure that we play the part with as much truth, as much honesty as possible. Very often we don't crack the code. We're not able to. Very few actors do that. And it's a very difficult process to get there, to that honesty, to that truth. And when you don't get to the honesty or truth, the audience knows it. The audience can catch you on stage or on camera. They know you're faking. As a faking is used, the word faking is used, but somehow pretending is not used. I'm glad you raised this. I actually haven't thought of it because it's never spoken of during the process of rehearsal or any kind of workshops. Does that answer?
In fact, you have been using a very opposite word, being truthful to the character you play.
Yes.
Yeah. See, we know we're telling a lie, but we have to be telling it with so much conviction and truth that you have to believe it. See, everything is a lie, yaar. I mean, Helen Mirren is not Queen Elizabeth. We know that. Daniel Day-Lewis is not Abraham Lincoln. We know that. But we suspend our disbelief to go and see how truthfully and how honestly an actor can play a certain role. And I think that's what marks out a good actor. Good writing, good direction. I'm going to keep coming to writing and direction because they're all really bound together. They're really bound. Good writing and good direction helps actors. So I'm sure when writers and directors also talk to each other, the word pretend may not be even coming up in their conversations. But thanks for raising that.
And
so, suppose you're doing 2 films or acting in a more than one production, 2 different mediums as well. How do you manage this shift? So we already heard about the craft of this transition, but how do you analyze the internal journey?
Sometimes it's very simple, yeah. Sometimes you just have to do it, there have been days when I've performed a show, I've had to go for an ad shoot, like 2 things, stage and camera happening together. But I think that's where your experience and training kind of kicks in. It's not always about the mind and about, regurgitating some emotion. Sometimes the explanation is very simple. Sometimes it's a work you have to do and you have to do it honestly. But you are playing a part, you're playing a character. And like I said, that's where training and experience kicks in. You learn with experience that you have to switch on and switch off. And because if an actor doesn't do that, it's doom for an actor. I mean, at least for theater artists, what happens is that a play starts and वो रुकता नहीं है, नाटक रुकता नहीं है ना, नाटक तो कंटिन्यू होता है एंड तक. सिनेमा एक्टर क्या करेगा यार, उसको बार बार टेक देना है. He has to recreate that same energy, that same emotion with every take. So if he has to get into his mind every time, it's difficult. So sometimes you have to just keep it simple. You have to learn to switch on and switch off. It's not easy. What happens on stage and on cinema more so is there are so many stimuli around you that are operating simultaneously. I literally feel that when I'm performing, my brain has to be divided into two. One part of the brain which tells me that, okay, when I'm on stage, that, okay, there's an audience sitting in front of me, there's a light being focused, so I need to walk into the light, these very practical things. There's furniture so that I don't bump into it. There's my co-actor. So there are all these things around me. So one part of my brain tells me that I have to be very conscious and aware of this. But there is another part which has to convince me that there is no audience around. There is no light. When you're acting in front of the camera also, when you're doing a difficult scene, an intimate scene, you have to, you have to be there and not be there. It's crazy. You have to be aware of the camera, how much you can move. If I move this much, I'm out of frame. All these very practical things are also going on in the actor's head. But at the same time, they have another part of their brain has to convince them to feel, to be in the moment. And negotiating between these two is extremely difficult, both on camera and on stage. And like I said, that's where training kicks in. So sometimes when there's a day when you have two different mediums, मतलब आपको stage भी करना है और कैमरे के सामने भी करना है, तो ये आपको switch करना ही पड़ेगा. You have to be mechanical about it also. Sometimes the explanation is not complicated. It's pretty simple. So yeah.
Swati, we have many questions stored in the chat box. Of course, we'll address. I just wanted to, stretch this. I would like you to stretch this context a bit more, this context of switching. You switched your career from a very, very serious academic world to, the world of performance. How did this happen? How do you relate to these two worlds after both happened to you?
Yeah, of course. I think one is at a very basic level, I made the switch because since my college days, I always knew that I loved being on stage. I loved performing. I generally don't talk a lot. I'm generally a very reserved person. I don't talk much. I take time to open up, but on stage, it's something else. And a lot of actors have these qualities. Many of them are shy. They don't talk much, but something else happens on stage or in front of the camera. That happens. So anyway, I realized that I really like being on stage long ago. Academics happened simply because यार स्कूल के बाद BA करना था, BA के बाद MA करना था. ठीक है, अभी क्या करें, ठीक है, MPhil कर लेते हैं. So again, I'm going back to the same thing, that sometimes decisions are not very complicated. They're very simple. But at the back of my mind, I knew that I was very clear that I wanted to get back to it at some point. My age never mattered to me. I knew that at some point I had to get back. It was during my MPhil that I realized that very strongly. I did my MPhil from Delhi, and the fantastic thing about Delhi is that you get to see a lot of wonderful theater from across the country, actually. So I got a chance to see all that, and I realized I was missing the stage. So when MPhil happened, I decided that now that I'm in the middle of MPhil, I can use I had a choice to choose my subject, my thesis. And very naturally, I chose the thesis on a form of theater. And I worked on it. I ended up reading up a lot about theater, about different kinds of performance theories. And I really started enjoying the academic side of theater as well, and the history of it, etc. Anyway, once that got over, which was very exciting, something told me that now I have to sort of jump in and I have to get into the performing side of it. So I joined a theater group in Delhi for a year, and that was another great experience. It really changed me as a person, and that happened, and then I shifted to Bombay, and yeah, since then it's been mostly theater, some film, and yeah, that's how it's been.
When was this? When did you decide to shift to Bombay?
Sorry?
When was this? When did you decide to shift to Bombay?
This was about 2009. 2011, yeah, 2011. And sorry, are you going to ask me something?
No, please continue.
No, answering your question, I think the switch, it's been, I mean, my academic life has really not gone back. See, the way I read this, is what we do in academic circles, you know. An actor doesn't talk like this.
Absolutely. Very old school academic circle, I would say.
They'll write down.
Very meticulous, very serious.
You know? So this hasn't really left me, and also at a performing level also it's not left me, because I think the kind of books I read, it gave me a certain, me studying sociology for so many years gave me a certain perspective on life, and as an actor it's very important to have that. The fact that you're able to take a certain stand, the fact that you have certain perspectives, it's very essential. And I think, and I'm very sure sociology has done that for me. And sociology kya hai yaar, wo human behavior ki study, human life ki study hai, acting aur kya hai, to mere liye dono same hai ek tarah se, you know. In fact, for many sometimes for some roles I have to play, or when I get a little stuck, I go back to some of my sociology books. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I don't see any kind of rift between the two. It's like I see the transition is pretty simple and smooth.
Swati, can we have a funny performance from Vagina Monologues?
अबे यार ये बच्चों को नहीं बोलते हैं बेटा अंकल के सामने परफॉर्म करो अब यार ये अरे नहीं यार अब देखो मैं I'm telling you मुझको ऐसे डायलॉग्स याद नहीं होंगे अचानक मत बोलो यार. But you can have a special performance at some point. I don't know, maybe a separate one.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that in Ahmedabad since a long time. That's a separate story. Off the record, we shall discuss that.
I've spoken so much, Shivain. Now you want me to even perform. But I'd love to perform for Karnataka University, but maybe on some other day. See, as I said, rehearsal is very important. I have not rehearsed. I need to do my homework before I perform. So, yeah.
There are a lot of questions in the chat box.
Yes. Can you,
Sandhya is asking, what is the biggest challenge in acting industry, and what is the myth about acting industry which you wanna debunk?
What is the biggest challenge and what is the myth I want to debunk? Yaar, ye bahut bada question hai. I mean, biggest and superlatives now they get me all nervous. Biggest challenge, I don't know, yaar. I mean, I really don't know what to say. And what is the myth about acting industry you want to debunk? I'm wondering, what should I say? Gosh, I don't know what to say. See, there are lots of challenges.
Yes, there are many students we have here who want to, who dream of joining the performance industry in some way or the other after they finish their academic courses. So they are keen on,
Yeah. See, challenge is as you see it. There are lots of challenges, yaar. Pehla maine bola ghar dhoondna itna mushkil hai. As an actor, try finding a house first. Try earning some money. If you earn some money, try sustaining it. It starts there. And also the choices you make. I think you just need to work hard. I mean, that's the way I believe things have worked for me or not worked for me. The biggest challenge is you yourself, is what I feel. And how you see yourself moving within the industry. I made clear choices. I know I want to do theater, but I also want to do all mediums. Some actors are very clear that they don't want to do theater because theater mein paisa nahi hai ya bahut kam paisa hai. They're very clear they want to do TV. They're very clear they want to do film only. Like I said, challenge is what you think is, and then you need to have certain clarity about what it is that drives you, what is it that you want to do. So that I think is the biggest challenge. Myth about the acting industry. I don't know. Achha, there is one common myth that a lot of parents have, that जो भी actor जाता है उसको सोना पड़ता है. ये myth है. उसको producer के साथ सोना पड़ता है. This is a big myth. I'm not saying that it does not happen. I'm definitely not negating it, but it happens, yes. But it does not happen also for a lot of people. There is this, you have now a lot of people talk about casting couch and things like that. You have amazing casting directors, yeah, who really help you get your way through. And by amazing, I mean these are casting directors who work hard. They also do their research, and they come to the theaters, they watch plays. You will find them also going out on the road searching for actors or non-actors. This I think might be a myth, but it's not. I mean, myth is too strong a word, because I won't say it doesn't happen. It happens, but actors have other kinds of experiences also. I hope that kind of answers it. Sorry, I took a bit too long to answer that one.
No. We are here to listen to you. And actually, I was, when you were talking about the challenges and the difficulties, I was observing the two sisters on my screen together, and Preeti ma'am was observing you with a very careful, expression, the very serious Didi who wants to know, okay, tell me how things are. And otherwise she's always full of questions, and now she is, the very protective sister that I see on her face.
Her questions and answers, we have our question answers, I like to say. And I mean, she's a performer, she goes through similar things that I do, yeah. Probably even more, because her performance form is very tough. It gets instant reactions, it's not easy. That's one thing I cannot do. Stand-up comedy, I cannot do it.
But how does her experience help you, or it's a mutual, transaction that you go with? You have clinicians at home. You have, performers all together. How do you, build yourselves up with all the experiences that you have? This is a very rare combination. Generally, all the
I think we've seen our each other's works, and that matters a lot. Just to see the other person's work, even if they're siblings, even if they're not siblings, you learn from another performer. I mean, she's my sister, but she's also a performer, and I've seen her perform. And that's what made me realize that I can't do this. I can't do what she's doing. It requires incredible courage, I think. And I mean, I have a different kind of courage, I feel, as a theatre performer. Stand-up comedians is a whole different game. Yeah, we talk about it. Yeah, we've seen each other.
We have another question from Dharmendra sir. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. I thought it's some question. It's fine. There is one question from Dharmendra sir. He is asking you to, requesting you to throw some light on the darker side of the industry for young minds being in the who will be in the industry.
Yeah. That depends on what he means by dark. I wonder if he's referring to what I just mentioned. Is that the dark side? If that's the dark side, I will not deny there is a dark side. But I think it's the same answer that I gave earlier. That it's one needs to figure out how you negotiate through it. It's a sad reality. But again, I would like to say that every industry, even academics, has a dark side. Why don't we talk about that? Corporate fields have dark sides. It's very
no, we do
exactly. So all fields have dark sides. I feel it's kind of people enjoy talking about the dark side of the film world, the dark side of an actor. That's again going back to that house hunt that I went for, where the broker said that nahi, hum actresses ko ghar nahi dete because they commit suicide. See, where did that perception come from? Yes, actresses commit suicide, but yes, corporate professionals commit more suicide than actors. What about academicians? Don't they kill themselves? It's not about the profession you're in, it's about the level of stress you're in, So, but somehow newspapers want to cover the death of actors and actresses more than, say, a corporate professional or a school-going teacher, school teachers, my God, school teachers have so much stress to deal with. I mean, if we're talking about a very specific urban scenario, but yeah, so I think that's what I would say, that dark side, every industry has a dark side. So does this, there's no denying, but well, I guess one has to be a bit, I would choosing theater is also, it's a good thing. A lot of people.
In fact, you already had one, like which one would you prefer if you had to choose, whether is it theater or films? Who was it, Tanisha? So such questions are coming to you, and you have been addressing them together. So that's interesting. But I'll again come back to the questions in the chat box. I had, one question. I had been teaching literature since long, and I see you have performed Shakespeare. I don't get to meet people performing Shakespeare often, so I just wanted you to highlight on how are your experiences of performing Shakespeare. You have played a part in King Lear. Which part did you play, by the way? I'm sorry.
I played Kent, again a man. But it's amazing in Shakespeare. Crossing over genders is a very common thing, even in his stories. And in King Lear also, I played a woman who disguises as a man. So and in Taming of the Shrew, I played a man. But Shakespeare allows for that, which is brilliant. But my experience has been phenomenal. I must confess that I'm relatively new to Shakespeare, and by new I mean I'm 2 years old to Shakespeare. I did my first Shakespeare play 2 years ago, and then I did King Lear last year. I think before that I really didn't know much about Shakespeare. I mean, acting करते थे हम, सुना था कि मतलब we had read a little bit of Shakespeare in school, no doubt, but never read him in his original language, in his, those really crazy tough
the
words.
Old English. Yes.
Yeah, the Old English. I had never read him in the Old English, and my exposure to Shakespeare was a lot of Vishal Bharadwaj films, which I'm really glad that those were my first entries into Shakespeare, because now after having studied Shakespeare, then when I look back at Vishal Bharadwaj's film, I'm like, oh, this guy's a genius, yeah, but Shakespeare, I think, it has changed me as an actor, definitely. Although I'm just 2 plays old, but also I had a month and a half training at Prague, and it's really changed my perspective towards acting, towards dialogue delivery. That's because the words that Shakespeare uses, Shakespearean language seems very distant and difficult, but once you make friends with the language, it's the best thing that can happen to an actor who speaks English. Let's also qualify that. I mean, if you don't know English, you may not be able to study Shakespeare in his language. Although there are brilliant translations in other languages as well, no doubt about that. But it's the best thing that can happen to an actor. Speaking as an actor, the most important thing for us on stage, especially, is to know where we have to breathe. It might sound simple, but it's the most difficult thing, because if you breathe at the wrong places, your dialogue delivery is wrong, and therefore what you convey to the audience audience kuch aur samajh ke nikal sakti hai. But with Shakespeare, once you get the way he writes, there's a certain rhythmic pattern to it. It's called the iambic pentameter. There's a certain meter to it, and that has been written so beautifully that the actor knows exactly where to breathe. And if you're able to crack that code, you can't go wrong with Shakespeare. And people have this impression that Shakespeare means बहुत बड़ी acting करनी है, ये सब. See, there was a certain time in theatre when actors had to really have big gestures and talk loudly, because acoustics were not that great earlier, and also the actor had to make sure that his or her voice, actually I will say his voice, because पहले औरतें बहुत कम थी stage पे, that his voice has to reach the last row of the audience. So he had to really act it out big. So, but the thing with Shakespeare is you can really be very natural with those words. And the minute you're able to understand where to breathe, the natural performance comes out. And that's beautiful. That's just beautiful. If you see Shakespearean actors like Helen Mirren or Judi Dench, they've had training in Shakespearean acting, and you see the way they perform. ऐसा लगेगा ही नहीं कि वो कुछ मतलब आपको समझ में आएगी शेक्सपियर वाली भाषा. In India, you have Adil Hussain. Adil Hussain is a Shakespearean actor. Irfan Khan has done a fair amount of Shakespeare. You know, that training of the Shakespearean text really comes out in your tongue and in your body and in your breath. And I think that's the best thing about Shakespeare. For me as an actor, of course, I'm speaking only as an actor. You know.
What was your research like? Apart from reading the texts, what was your research like? I'm sure it was different. In representing a very different world to, the audience who are not trained in any of the emotions, many of the emotions that are being highlighted in a very particular manner,
in Shakespeare,
not the old English that we are talking about. The way he represents dilemma, the way he represents, in fact, in Lear, the way he is representing doubt and dilemma and relationships, everything. It's the language is completely different.
Yeah.
So, what was your research like? How?
See, there is the language, of course, which is the most important thing in Shakespeare. But like I said, he gives you breathing points. Shakespeare tells you where to breathe, where to stop, where to pause. And the words he uses, they are very evocative. They evoke images. So even if I were to read Shakespeare, like sitting right here on this virtual space, just the words are so powerful that it's like a photograph. You can literally see it in front of your eyes. And if the actor has cracked the code of the right point of breathing and pausing and having the right diction, like spelling out the words clearly. And of course, let us not forget the body also plays a very important part in any Shakespearean performance. It could be big, it could be small, anything. When all these things come together, if the audience is not understanding 100%, they will understand 80% of it, of the language. And the other 20%, they will feel it. They will really feel it. So it's okay if they don't understand a part of Shakespeare language, And this I felt not just with Indian audiences, but even in Prague where we perform, people who speak English, where English is their first language, they don't understand all of Shakespeare. And it's okay to not understand all of Shakespeare, it's okay because it's old English. Those words a lot of words we don't use, and that manner of speaking we don't use. But Shakespeare is able to leave you behind with a certain feeling, and that is universal, So yeah, that's the thing. I think it's okay if all of Shakespeare's words are not conveyed. There's something else that happens between the words. That if the actor cracks that, then the audience really gets what is being said. So yeah, that's.
And what was this different thing that happened to you while playing Ken?
This different thing that happened to me? I don't know. There's this bit where I really beat up a guy, and there's a bit where I like sort of spray him with expletives, like puri gaaliyon se bhara hua hai, and there was no space to breathe at all. So I almost rattled off those words. I remember, and there's one particular scene where Kent fights this other guy. And in that, what happens is the words then don't become important. It's the passion with which you say the words that becomes important. The audience is not going to understand the word. They're going to understand the sound of it and the feel of it. And I think this was the particular scene where I felt, to answer your question, this change.
Actually, when you were, discussing the artist's role and image as the healer, then I was trying to connect to, your performances from there, and I am just going on Shakespeare, but just that there are students who are here who study Shakespeare, and some of them are keen on studying Shakespeare, though they haven't. And so this connect, you were talking about the artist who is a healer, who is a connect between two different worlds, two different points of view. And you place yourself there in a Shakespeare drama? And also, where do you place Shakespeare the artist? Wherever you it's just on your perception, because of course Shakespeare has changed, the interpretation of Shakespeare has changed again and again. So just I'm just asking, from what is it from your point of view?
Let me get to your question. Let me see if I got a question right. How do I see myself in a Shakespeare play? As Swati? You mean how is it affecting
the actor? As Swati, the actor.
In a Shakespeare play?
The performer who is playing a part in a Shakespeare drama.
Okay, and your second part was?
Shakespeare the artist.
I'm still not very clear about the question.
Okay, let me break it. One, you, the artist, performing a Shakespeare play, translating it to the audience here.
Yes.
In a brand new world.
Yeah.
And you, the artist, the healer that you are talking about. What is your role in it? How do you identify? What do you translate your role would be?
I don't know if I'll be able to answer this question, but I guess I'm going to go back to the words of truthfulness and honesty, because everything, any kind of text or any kind of performance kind of boils down to that. I have to be truthful first to the words on the page. I have to respect those words. And with Shakespeare, I mean, there are people who improvise and sort of add in their own lines, but with Shakespeare, I feel there's no reason to do that, because he's given you gold. He's literally given you gold. You just don't need to do that. Respect the word, and the minute you're honest and truthful to the word, like I said, after rigorous amounts of rehearsal, it has to get into your body. It shouldn't look like you're thinking, what's my next line? It's got to come out so naturally, so easily. And it does with Shakespeare, it really does. It flows out after a certain point, once you get used to that language. So that flowing out, like I said, the patra has to flow out,
Yes.
So that happens, that literally happens, and the patra flows inwards and outwards, the vessel. And that is something, I won't say it's anything to do with Shakespeare. Shakespeare is a great writer, but it's to do with any good writing. Any good writing helps the actor to connect to the character. If the actor connects to the character, the audience connects to the character. It's as simple as that, वरना वो truthfulness आएगी नहीं. और वो सही में मतलब बहुत बार actors have to force themselves to really believe in the script, They may not believe in it because sometimes it's so badly written. They don't get convinced. Then how are they supposed to convince the audience? How are they supposed to heal the audience? So in fact, to answer your question, I would just say the holy grail is the writing. To answer this specific question, it's like a pack of dominoes. If the writing is bad, gone, actors gone, audience is gone. You've lost it. You've lost the plot. So, and Shakespeare, well, writer. What more can I say?
Thanks a lot. Okay, I have a question.
I think
the chat box is full of questions, and
yeah.
Has a question. Can you talk something about Jayeshbhai Jordaar?
Actually, I can't, because it's not released. I am not permitted to talk about it.
Vishruth has another interesting question, that why does Bollywood show poor women very dark in skin color? And he writes that they did to you in Hindi medium. And did that affect you in any way?
That's a great question. First, I'll finish answering the earlier one. See, I cannot talk about Jayeshbhai Jordaar for a simple reason that as an actress, I'm bound by a contract, and I sign what is called a non-disclosure, NDA, non-disclosure agreement, where I cannot discuss a film or its plot until it is released out to the audience. But what is known about Jayeshbhai Jordaar is what I can talk to you about. It stars Ranveer Singh, and it is set in Gujarat. So these are the two things that the public knows about. So I can only tell you that. Other than that, I'm not allowed to speak about it. Going back to the second question about Hindi medium and certain. This is also a topic for another, and this can take a whole new. It can go on for an hour, but I had an issue with it because I already have a naturally dusky skin tone. I don't know why they had to darken it further. I really don't know. It was not needed. And let me tell you that there is a lingo among makeup artists, okay? And this is very interesting. There's a lingo among makeup artists, and they say, "Inka tone up kar do, inka tone down kar do." When they say tone up, they mean inko gora kar do. And when they say tone down, it means inko or savla kar do. And yes, it was an issue, but I must also say that sometimes, see, I'm in my journey as an actor, I'm not in a position of power, and this is again very, very important. I could have resisted, I could have told them no. In fact, I also did on the set. And it was told to me that don't worry, ये post production में correct हो जाएगा, वो natural लगेगा. But it didn't look natural. It looked like I was painted on. It's very clear. And but anyway, see, as an actor who's not a superstar, I'm a theater actor. I'm a small time actor. Like really, let's face it. At the stage of my career that I'm in right now, I clearly don't have the power to say, nahi, main ye scene karungi nahi. I can't do that. I can question them, and I did question them, and they said, nahi, par ye clear ho jayega. Like I said, oh, fir kuch clear nahi hua tha. But anyway, going back to the larger question, this was a very specific incident. Going back to the larger question, yeah, it's been done in a lot of films, this, toning down of actresses. Like वो कौन सी फिल्म आई थी अभी बाला
yep बाला
में, like what was that, what was happening, why? And Bhumi Pednekar is in a position to question it. Someone like Nandita Das is in a position to question it, and she questioned it. Of course, she came up with this whole Dark is Beautiful campaign and all of that. And there is an incident which you may be familiar with, which Nandita has officially spoken about. वो किसी फिल्म के शूट पे गई थी और she was supposed to play a rich woman. And the makeup artist was told by the director or the producer कि इनका थोड़ा और इनका टोन अप कर दो, क्योंकि सांवला रंग है ना, इनका टोन अप कर दो क्योंकि ये अमीर है. So she then put her foot down. She really put her foot down, and she spoke about it, and then she went public about it also. But see, this is it's still being done, but I think there are also a lot of filmmakers who choose to not do it, and I think we should see them also. And मतलब एक तो mainstream हो गया, एक independent हो गया, और अभी आजकल mainstream और independent काफी enmesh हो रहे हैं. And there are interesting casting choices that are being made, cutting across all sort of skin colors, and yeah, I mean, I think interesting choices are being made also, and there is definitely this problem. यार हम लोग कुछ भी बोले, हम लोग सबसे racist लोग हैं दुनिया में.
Absolutely.
We are the most racist people, really. And talking about skin color, there's also another interesting aspect I would like to talk about is that, see, dusky skinned women, they get stereotyped. There's no doubt about that, including I'm talking about myself also. I get to play roles like Kamwali Bai, reporter. For some reason, reporter falls into dusky skin. I don't know why. Don't ask me. और मतलब ये general categories आते हैं. माँ पता नहीं. Then also there are some casting people. I'm not saying all, because there are some phenomenal casting directors around, but some of them also get into this. They use really strange language in casting. They use words like "हमको tribal look चाहिए." There were extremely offensive words saying "हमको lower caste look चाहिए, हमको Dalit look चाहिए." In fact, some of us even got together and sort of did a small campaign against that. But ये सब है, ये चलता है. But also, you know, I was having this conversation with another friend of mine who was very fair. और वो बिल्कुल वो conventional model type look जो होता है ना, वो है उसका. उससे मेरी ये बात हो रही थी, and I was saying that, you know, it's dusky skinned women do get stereotyped and slotted into certain roles, and she was saying, you know, Swati, it's the same for fair women, yaar. We are not seen as women who could play, like she doesn't get reporter roles, she doesn't get gaon wali roles. You know? And I mean, please, I mean, I like really, I mean, you mentioned in my bio about the Ye Hai India Meri Jaan, you know, where I did this. I traveled for about 90,000 kilometers across the country on road. So I've visited villages, small towns, everywhere. You see, even in villages, men and women who are gora. ये कहाँ से आया है कि गांव मतलब सांवला और शहर मतलब गोरा? नहीं, ये गलत है. आप गुजराती गांव में जाओ, राजस्थान के गांव में जाओ, आप साउथ इंडिया के गांव में जाओ यार. मतलब ये साउथ और नॉर्थ, डोंट यू गेट मी स्टार्टेड. So I think there's also a basic lack of knowledge, a lot of ignorance. A lot of people who are sitting in Bombay have never got out of Bombay or have never got out of their small towns. They haven't traveled and they know very little, so they think कि हाँ ये stereotypical categories हैं, इसी में fit कर दो, इनको fit कर दो. और उस चक्कर में हम क्या करते हैं, हम over the years एक narrative बना देते हैं और फिर ऑडियंस को भी लगने लगता है अच्छा गांव वाली मतलब सांवली और शहर वाली मतलब गोरी, अमीर मतलब गोरी और गरीब मतलब सांवली. That's not real, yeah. These are categories we need to question. But the thing is, it takes time. Nandita Das did it. I, as a small-time actor, tried doing it in my way. But for it to gain momentum and to understand, it might take decades, I don't know, centuries, I don't know. I mean, it takes time. It really takes time. Yeah.
Anisha has a question. So if you had to choose, which one would you prefer, films or theatre?
Tough one, yeah. Both. I love both because I don't see any point in comparing the two. They're very different mediums. They're both equally challenging for actors. And I think actors should expose themselves to all kinds of medium, including TV, including TV. It's very essential to, but again, TV of what kind? वो भी आप choose करो फिर कि किस तरह का आपको TV करना है. And the web space is amazing. The web space kind of collates everything. It's like a theatre actor's dream come true. Yeah, they're casting so many theatre actors in these web series and all that. It's amazing. No, theatre and film both are very different mediums. They allow me to be very different kinds of performers, you know. So and as a performer, anyone would like to expand their experience, right? So both are important. I think both are equally important. Yeah.
Okay, we have one question from Tanisha. What's your take on gender pay gap?
My take on gender pay gap, it exists and it should not exist. That's my take. It should not exist. Yeah.
That's it.
हाँ, मतलब क्या बोलूं? Okay, सिर्फ entertainment industry का नहीं है, बहुत सारे industries का. Again, I'll come to that. Let's check out corporate industry. Let's check out other industries also. It's there. It should not be there. It's wrong. I mean, women in most cases do a lot of double, triple, quadruple roles. यार घर पे भी उतना काम, फिर ऑफिस में भी मतलब, you know. So it should not be there.
During the lockdown, many women are complaining about the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't have a lot of time, but there are interesting questions. Many of them are very interesting, but I can see Sandhya wants you to talk on nepotism in Bollywood.
Nepotism in Bollywood? It should not be there, yaar. I don't have any mama chacha in Hollywood. Bol rahe ho. Bollywood. It should not be there.
Okay, Ahana, she's asking, okay, I'll read out the question. Hi ma'am, you being an actor, what are your views towards role of a production designer or art director? I am asking this as I am a visual communication design student. she writes.
My views, whatever experience I've had, I've not shot too many films, but जो भी मैंने किया है, I am in absolute awe of the art direction team. Because what they do to a film is outstanding. Again, you know, I will go back to my point of artist as a researcher. भाई साहब, आर्ट डायरेक्टर को जितना रिसर्च करना पड़ता है ना, किसी को इतना नहीं करना पड़ता है. The amount, because they contribute to the look of a certain film. If it's a period film, they have to really research small details. Or even if it is a film like Hindi medium where we are shooting in a slum, the slum requires a lot of details. You know, you have to literally you have to go out into the field and see what the place looks like, and art directors look at smaller details also. The bigger details are there, but they look at really small details, and they have to look at small details because there are parts where you know, there's a close-up shot with the camera. So the amount of again, I'm going back to truth and honesty. You are able to believe a scene because like, if I don't know how many of you have seen the film Oye Lucky Lucky Oye. I've lived in Delhi for 5 years, and then I came to Bombay and Ahmedabad. But when I saw Oye Lucky, I was like, Delhi was recreated for me. You know, that specific house, the same wires hanging, the way the house was arranged, the small details. It's very, very. That's my view for, you know, for art direction. And it really fascinates me when I'm on a film set. And there's a lot of career scope in it. Like, I've seen a lot of people. FTI has a course in art direction, if I'm not mistaken. It has a very good art direction course. Art direction is like what do you say? Another very important arm or another important wing of filmmaking. उसके बिना film नहीं बन सकती. मतलब writer, director, actors, yes, a lot of other departments. Art direction is one of the top departments. It's very, it's great. It's great. Yeah, huge respect for them.
It is actually a very interesting interaction. But I think we will have to try wrapping this up because the session is going to just turn off in some time.
How much time do we have? How much time do we have?
Just 2 minutes. Bhakti has a question. If someone wants to start exploring acting in theatre as an option, where should they start and what should be their preparation?
And what should be their preparation? I can see the question. Exploring acting in theatre as an option, where should they start? What should be their preparation? I think there's no one answer to this. It depends on where the person is. If the person is in Delhi, for example, then Delhi has some excellent theatre groups. One can join that. Or one can join some really good acting schools. I mean, there is NSD, but I must say that one of the best schools in the country right now is located well inside Bombay. It's called the Mumbai Drama School. That's a great place to start if you want to have training in theatre. It's a different thing if you want to just jump in and start working. But if you want proper training in theatre, Mumbai Drama School is a very, very good institution. It trains you specifically in all aspects of theatre. So that's a great starting point. And like, yeah, what should be the preparation? That itself is the preparation. I would highly recommend that institution. But if you want to just jump in, then there is no clear answer. Then you have to go about doing some hunting, watch a few plays, see which plays you like, and go backstage and speak to the directors. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Theatre directors are very open to meeting people. नाटक खत्म हुआ, आप बैकस्टेज जाओ, उनसे बात कर लो. ये भी I've done that. They're really open and generally very humble as people, very simple people. A lot of these theatre directors. So yeah, if you want training, then I would say a known institute, or you can just sort of jump in.
I had one question, and again, you know, I'm manipulating my hosting ability. Will it? I'll try. So
about the technicalities, I'm just is there anyone who can, you know?
So I wanted to know, so when you talk about Vagina Monologues, it started, the purpose of it initially was to celebrate femininity, and then it evolved into a medium of protesting against the patriarchal notions of the feminine.
No,
So
it has
how
both.
does this?
It has been both from the beginning.
This has always been the both. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been both from the beginning.
So in the Indian productions. No, so my question is actually not the interpretation of it. Rather, how do you think the Indian productions are adding something to it? Are they?
Let me tell you that the Vagina Monologues is being performed in many countries around the world. But in many countries, it has stopped. People have stopped performing it. India is one of the country which is the longest in terms of performance time. मतलब 17 साल हो गए. Many countries they've stopped performing long back. In India, it's still going on. That says something. And most of our shows we perform to full houses. That says something. In the beginning, the director and producer thought that ये 1 साल से ऊपर नहीं चलेगा. They were predicting bans, which happened. They knew that they will get banned or they'll face roadblocks, which happened. There's no doubt about that. But the response of the audience has always been overwhelming. It's been full houses. And I think over the past 17 years, and I've had many chats with my producer and director, people really want to talk about these things because these things are not spoken about. Again, going back to the thing of the artist as a healer, we open up wounds, things we don't talk about. When we see it being played out, it's a part of us is opened up. And Indians are, we are great with sort of covering up and हर चीज पे taboo ये taboo है, वो taboo है, vagina बोलना taboo है, हम स्कूल में भी नहीं पढ़ाएंगे कि all these things. But for a society that is so sort of where everything is sort of covered up, when you have a play which literally very openly talks about all this, people come to watch. And I'm also going to talk about the fact that we performed in different cities of the country, and also for different classes. Again, very important. We performed for different classes. We performed for the rich, the middle class, the very poor. We performed in slums. We performed to women through NGOs. We've gone and performed in front of women who've been victims of domestic violence or have had other issues. We performed in front of. There was an amazing performance. In terms of audience, we performed for the entire Mumbai police force also, and the response is the same. People love it. In fact, in one incident, what happened was that I think some person from Shiv Sena had a problem with the word vagina. उनको लगा पता नहीं क्या ही है, तो किसी को भेजा गया था actually. उनके किसी शिवसेना के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव को भेजा गया कि पहले देखो क्या है, what is this play about, and then we'll figure out if we have to ban or if we have to go with our lathis and hit these actors. So one or two of these Shiv Sena people who were representatives who had an issue with the play came and watched the play, and this was way before I had joined the play, by the way, and they really liked it. So it was a surprise, and then he spoke to my director and he said, हाँ चलने दो play चलने दो, in Marathi बोला होगा पर चलने दो. So I don't know how to explain it. It's amazing. The response has been very good in India. I think because these things we don't talk about now. So when someone is talking about it, we want to open up.
To hear more, yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Any more questions anyone has? Otherwise, we will wrap up this session for the time being. As we have another session at 3, Pritidas in conversation with Flora Saini. So you all can grab your lunch very quickly in between. Swati, it was amazing talking to you, and I'm sure this conversation could have gone on and on and on with the number of questions that we had in the chat box, and both of us had more to ask. Maybe we can have you again. I'm looking forward to it. And so I thank you.
Thank you so much.
And both of us, from both of us, we thank everyone who joined the session. And anything you want to say, Swatashrini, before we wrap up?
No, so we'll catch up later. I have a lot of questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Acha, is the film shot already? Jayeshbhai Jordaar.
Yeah, it's been shot.
Okay. So it's in the edit, right?
It can be what?
It's in the edit, right?
I don't know. I really honestly I don't know what stage it is, but shooting हो गई. मुझे इतना
Shooting हो गई. Acha.
A boy from Ahmedabad, director. The director is your Ahmedabadi chokra, Divyang, na?
Divyang Thakkar has directed it. Yeah.
Kevi Rite Jayesh, which completes 8 years yesterday. He started his career with that and he's directing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, ma'am. Thank you so much, and
Thank
all
you.
the best. All the best for further all the projects you're in.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to seeing you more.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.